2. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. Our guest speaker is about to drop a ton of knowledge. I hope you have your pen and pads ready to take notes. As I mentioned behind the scenes here before we officially started recording, I want us to leave here changed, encouraged, ready to just put all of the things that our guest speaker is going to share with us into practice. I'm just going to briefly go over some quick housekeeping rules so that we all feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. So participation is key. Lots of crazy things going on in the world. Seems like everything is topsy-turvy. Seems like the world's on fire. With that said, you are taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us for the hour. So we would love to hear from you. Please drop anything in the chat box that you want to share, any reflections, any tips and tricks of your own, anything that you find relevant and interesting to add on to this conversation. We want to hear from you. So feel free to drop that in the chat box whenever you have something come to mind. And if anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, you can write to either me or my colleague Paloma privately, and we will raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous there. Last thing I'll say is we would love for you to follow us on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store for you. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, I'm just going to take a second to introduce myself. So as I said before, my name is Mariella Marie, and I love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence. And this is, another opportune moment to really dive in deep on emotional intelligence, because I feel like if we could all just, be more self-aware, practice empathy, be more socially responsible, that we could totally just, change the way we do everything in the world. So I might bring some of our reflections to that note because I love philosophizing about emotional intelligence. And I would love to invite you all to support the project that I'm working on that is called the Positive Force Team. You can go to thepositiveforceteam.org, sign up for our newsletter, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to chat with you all there. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker. Nelly, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to learn about Power to Fly, and what you're excited to share with us today.
Okay, I think I'll start with how I came to learn about Power to Fly. But first, hello, everybody. As she said, I'm Nelly. I'm Nigerian, so my surname is pronounced Kalu, but never bother. Let's just keep going. I'm in Lagos right now in Nigeria. It's about 6 p.m. or thereabout here in Lagos. So I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm excited to meet you and I'm excited to be talking and sharing my unique experience. I think what excites me the most is that I'm able to talk about all of these happening from a Nigerian perspective with you, wherever you are. And for everyone who sent questions, I hope you're watching and listening because thank you for them. I have my notepad filled with your answers. I stumbled upon Power to Fly during the lockdown and the beginning of the pandemic. And we had our first lockdown here, and immediately it seemed like my life as a broadcast journalist just froze. I was no longer in the studio because we really didn't have the capacity here in Nigeria to do a lot of broadcast from home scenario. I'm both a TV and radio host, so it was impossible to do any of the work I ever did before the lockdown. And about that time, I just wrapped up a contract with Love Matters Nigeria, where I worked as a media advocate for SRHR issues, as sexual and reproductive health issues, as well as an advocacy platform for LGBTQ plus rights. So I thought to myself, I need to work remotely now. I can no longer stay in a situation where my work means physical presence. Without that, it almost seems like I wasn't working. Although with Love Matters and RNW Media in the Netherlands, it was remote as well as physical, but it just wasn't. I needed more of that. So I started to Google and search, where can I find work remotely? And I found Power to Fly. I never applied at first. I just registered, watched a few webinars and got to know of it and started receiving these emails. And one day I thought, this is it. I'm going to apply. And it's applied like as a spree on everything you guys had, qualified or not. Because what I loved was it says apply whether you're qualified or not. And women tend not to until we are absolutely sure we're qualified. So I did that. And next thing I know, here I am. About a month or so later, here I am, talking to you about this. I haven't been employed as yet for anything, but this is also great, but that's how I got here. And my work Oh my goodness. I am a freelance Facebook fact checker with Africa Check. It's one of the foremost fact checkers here in Africa. Also, I got trained in fact checking by Dubawa, another one. And I'm a broadcast journalist, but I'm also a journalist. I write, I have podcasts, I do digital investigative journalism. My fact checks have covered misinformation and disinformation around COVID-19 pandemic, elections, political propaganda, all the works. On broadcast, I love to discuss and talk about stories people would rather have buried and unreported. So unreported stories, they draw me. I remember putting up this poster and one of my colleagues said to me, oh, there she goes again, having the conversation no one wants to have. You know, conversations people avoid are exactly what draws me. And that's been my career throughout. I just wrapped up a digital investigation on religious influences from both, you know, Pentecostal evangelicals in Nigeria and Catholics, just religious influences around the COVID-19 vaccine and misinformation and disinformation around it, and why it keeps people from actually accepting it here in Nigeria and most of Africa. It was for the Institute of War and Peace Reporting's Africa Resilience Network. So basically, I've been busy, but I'm glad I'm doing this. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, Nelly. I'm so happy that I have the pleasure and opportunity to ask you questions, to really dive in deep on the work that you're doing out there. Thank you so much for your work as well. I just wanted to recognize and inspire folks, you know, through your words to support the work that you do. And speaking of supporting the work that you do, where can folks find you online, on social media, or you know, wherever you prefer folks to connect with you? Can you let us know?
Twitter is a go-to for me. I don't know if you have my handle, you can put it up, but it's at Nelly Laoni. And that's my handle. It's pronounced Laoni, but I know Americans call it Leone. So whichever works. And as you know, I don't know if you guys know, but Twitter has just been banned in Nigeria. So we don't know how long that ban will be. And we'll probably talk about it in the course of all of this. But that's where I am. And I'm still there. I'm still on it, you know. And I prefer to be reached out on Twitter a lot more than anywhere else. But I'm also on Instagram, Nelly_Laoni. But if you send me a DM on Twitter or a message, I'll write you, we'll talk, find me there. And most of my work is there. But I'm also on LinkedIn as Nelly Kalu. At least that's still open. So however, you reach me on one, I'll tell you where else to find me.
Awesome. Cool. So I just wanted to make sure that folks can just start looking you up right now and just also tap into the things that you've been able to publish. And I would love for you to share more about, you know, this Twitter ban that's happening out there in Nigeria right now. And maybe, you know, something that you have discovered because you're clearly still using it. And I would just love to hear, you know, the whys, the hows, the how we can support and, you know, really continue to amplify, you know, your voice and other voices,
Yeah.
even though we're being censored all the time everywhere. I love speaking about digital colonization and getting us to think, you know, in more of a counterculture way so that we can trailblaze, you know, a new way to share space, to inspire each other. Because, you know, unfortunately, historically speaking, you know, the colonization of industry, of economy, of religion, of, you know, thought and education is real. And it's, you know, and it's happening now in a digital space. So I'm grateful to have this conversation with you because I know we're just going to be like, you know, philosophizing and putting things into practice and finding, you know, really practical ways to make some change here. So can you go over some of the principal themes you plan on covering in this next hour, Nelly?
Right, I can. Some of the steps I'm going to share with you, most of you have already asked this, so all of this has been covered in your questions, which I'm glad for. I'll be telling you how we're able to set this up, actionable steps that you can use to create a safe space in unhealthy environments. And I'll explain why this environment, Nigeria specifically as a country, is quite unhealthy, especially if you are an LGBTQ plus person. And and of course, how you can encourage communication in these communities. I'll share that with you. How you can do that respectfully, understanding the line between patronizing and condescending. It's very important to know, especially when you are not part of that community, but just an ally. And as well, we'll be talking about how you can stay focused while showing empathy and answering your questions that come directly to how we do this here in Nigeria. That's why I'm here. These are the things we talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nelly. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's roll right into these questions. So, for those of you who are joining live, if you hear your question come up and you're here live with us, we really want to know that you're here. So, just let us know in the chat box. And if this is not your question and you still, want to dive in deep or you have something to add, we want to hear from you as well. So, please make use of the chat box in this next hour. I can't stress enough. I will sound like a broken record because I want to hear from you all. So, let's start with this first question here. What are the first steps we can take to build a safe space for the community? I don't know where to start. Maybe a Facebook group?
Yes. I remember that question because it took me to the very beginning of why, the actionable steps. First, you need to understand why a safe space is necessary and important in the first place. For us, we understood it. We knew why. And it's because there is no other space. That's why we had to create one. And if you can't tell why you need it, then don't begin in the first place. Because you also need to understand and learn the language of fellowship and empathy for your community. Because in Nigeria, for instance, we need a safe space because it's criminalized to be LGBTQ plus, to be of any sexuality that is not hetero. So it's criminalized. You cannot even if you were an ally, you cannot, to be an ally is criminalized in Nigeria as well. So you cannot have friends or relatives or loved ones who are gay and you haven't reported it, then, you're an accessory to whatever this crime, the claim is. So we needed to create a safe space, not just for the community, but for allies of the community as well. And for us uniquely, it was a space for, I'm using this word, but please don't misunderstand me, conversion, to convert people who do not understand what it is, what it means, to begin to understand. Because it's not enough to just create a small avenue to protect yourselves. You need also to get people to see why we need to cohabit, why you need to understand. And we never like to use the word, and when I say we, I mean my team and all of us who work together on this, we never like to use the word tolerance, because sometimes tolerance can be hierarchical. It means I tolerate because, I'm in a position of privilege, and that's something else you need to understand. And I know that's not the exact definition, but sometimes the context of words matter. And for us, the language of fellowship and empathy, figure out the fine line between patronizing and condescending. If you're an ally and you are speaking to someone of the LGBT community, understand that you already are a privileged person. If you are hetero in a country where to be any kind of sexuality other than that is criminal. So if you want to create a safe space, the safe space is not for you to control. You're not in control here. It's not about power. It's about communion. And if you can't understand that, you will speak in terms that alienate rather than bring people together. And so you must understand what that means. Another thing you need to know is, I've already said it, but you need to acknowledge your privilege. You need to know that the reason you're free and you can't understand what it means to not love who you want to love, talk what you want to say, and be in spaces freely without someone profiling you and saying you look gay. So if you don't understand what it means, you really you can speak of it, but you really can't live through it. So understand that it's privilege already to not be classed that way. Understand it and know not to use it. Then, of course, learn about the community that you're choosing to ally with. Learn what it means to be LGBTQ in Nigeria, for instance. We had to learn that. We had to understand that and keep asking questions. You were never going to get it right, but you keep asking questions because a true friend will ask questions. If I don't understand what's going on with Mariella, I will ask her, so how's it going? Why do you like this? Why don't you like this? So don't be afraid to ask questions of people you're claiming to be an ally of, because if you don't, how can you then speak the right words, support the right things? All you will do is assume, and we all know assumptions just lead us to trouble. Then, of course, something else we did was we used social media. Physical gatherings are a problem, so we had to use social media. So you asked, Facebook? Yes, Facebook. Facebook because it allowed for, at the time, more of a community. People of, it was the most used social media in Nigeria. So if you're going to use social media, use the social media for your audience. For us, it was young people who had no one to ask questions about their sexual health problems, no one to ask questions about even their love life, because people tend to misunderstand when fighting for the rights of LGBTQ plus people that yes, it's freedom and a right to be, to express your sexuality, but it's also love. It's being in a relationship. It's finding someone attractive. It's having these complex emotions and things, and you need someone to talk to them, talk to about them. Not always do you need someone to, wave the flag. Sometimes you just want someone to discuss, so how's it going? What did he say or she say that got you upset today? Or they say, you want to discuss these things like anyone would. So Facebook was the place for lengthy dialogue, for engagements, even after a week to pick it up where you left it. That's what we used Facebook for. And we shared experiences, we engaged, we talked about things that suited our audience at the time, at that place. So for us, that's how we started, understanding, choosing to learn, looking at the gray areas, addressing them, and of course, using the social space that spoke the language of our audience. And at that time for us, and by that time, I mean 2018, 2019, Facebook.
So thank you so much for sharing that. I have a question just to, stir the pot a little bit. I agree that, we have access for those of us who have access to these social media platforms. It is a good, opportunity to be able to learn from each other, to, form allyships with other folks. But I would love to hear your reflection on a new study that has come out with from GLAAD, and GLAAD is a leading LGBTQ plus advocacy group. They've analyzed some social media data, and they have found that the entire social media sector is effectively unsafe for LGBTQ plus users, according to their social media safety index. I had the pleasure of interviewing someone who's on their board of directors, and she said that soon they're actually going to be giving scores to all of the social media platforms, so that folks can see if they are practicing what they preach, if they are effectively, censoring bodies because they're different, because they are, a part of marginalized communities, or underheard or underserved. One of my one of the topics that I come back to often, because I don't know that we're talking about it enough, again, is that the digital space is being colonized, right? So what does that mean? You've got programmers and developers and CEOs that, are from a certain population in the world, that have a certain privilege, that look a certain way, that probably are heterosexual, cis, identifying all the let's call them quote unquote norms, the social norms, that have been, force fed to us. Those folks are creating the digital space that we are having to contribute, by, having these conversations and dialogues. Do we need to create a new space, or do we need to count on them to make sure that we are safe in the spaces that they've created? I know this is more to philosophize and just to challenge our thought. Please go as deep as you want there.
Well, first, I'm going to start with poverty. Understand that in itself as a concept limits all options. So the conversation about creating a new space, or if this space is safe, is really a conversation of privilege, because already doing anything else physically is unsafe in Nigeria. Now, an LGBTQ youth is probably in the closet or came out of the closet and was kicked out by their parents, is living in dire poverty, might be homeless, might barely have access to healthcare, or could be exposed to unsafe sex, rape, and all kinds of things. And then the one place he or she might be able to, or they might find some kind of safety, is online. LGBTQ plus communities in Nigeria are in small bubbles online, where they know one person they trust, and it's risky. And the data from GLAAD isn't wrong, but I'm saying that it will be good to flag these sites, and then we have to educate people around us to say, now these sites might not be safe for you, but it all comes to poverty. What's the alternative? Can I afford the alternative? Can I use it? Do I have access to it here? What does it mean to have access to it right here? If an LGBTQ plus person in the US already has access to this and is safe, what does it mean for an LGBTQ plus person in Nigeria? What does it cost to provide that kind of safety? If we could meet in person, we could abandon social media and survive in our small groups. But we can't, because once we gather in groups, we're plucked off. So we can only stay anonymous. And if we do stay anonymous, you tell us it's not a safe space. So what then do we do? As I said, poverty is the underlying factor here, the common denominator. And we have to think differently over here how to address these things. But as always, safety is number one. And as we always do, we'll keep adapting. But when that list does come out and the grading comes out, we'll know best how to adapt, as we always do.
Thank you, Nelly. Thank you for diving in on that question. That was an extra question that I threw in there. So let's go back to the let's go back to the questions that you all have submitted previous to the chat. Again, if you hear your question come up, let us know you're here. So this question reads, how do we encourage people to feel safe? How can we convince them that our space is a safe one?
I remember scribbling, make sure your action matches your words. Because it's not just, for instance, while we were in Facebook, of course, the page would have all these actionable words and say, this is what we represent, this is what we are. But our space for privacy was always the inbox, so you go into the inbox, and that's where I worked as a moderator to speak to people every day. So you go into the inbox, and that's where you want to know if these people are as they say. Are they as open? Are they kind? Are they there to listen? Will they come back to me? If I ask a question, what would happen? So your words just have to match your actions, and the other way around. If you say, you also have to make sure that it's an environment where you never encourage bullies. Make sure bullies are chastised and silenced publicly on the page. Because if you cuddle a bully, you immediately chase away someone who needs that space to be free. And no one is saying that you have to bully a bully. You just have to be disciplined. Explain the disciplinary nature of the page. Explain what this community is, what clearly, in very clear terms, in the language that your people understand. Because if Mariella was going to tell a Nigerian not to be a bully, they won't listen. She's too nice, That's what they'll think, because she will use all the nice or polite. But if I'm going to speak to a Nigerian, I know exactly what to say for them to know, no, this can't be tolerated here. And she'll do the same for, an American, I'm thinking. You know exactly what language to say, no, absolutely not. And that's it. Now, sometimes what we find is a bully could pause after being sanctioned like that publicly and apologize, and then maybe run into the DM, into the inbox, and ask a question. When that happens, now we begin to convert, we begin to speak, we start to have that conversation. Because sometimes a bully is only a bully because they're afraid of what they don't know. So, but if they never want to learn, they'll disappear because they know that's not a space for them. Also for us, we understood that they feel comfortable in doing that because by law, they're allowed to be bullies. They're allowed to hate. By law, the law says, feel free to hate these people. Feel free to hate anyone talking about sex or even same sex. Just hate everyone if you want to. That's what the law says. But when it's your space, you establish that. And I think that's one way to let them know. And then how can you convince them? I think if you ever have a page, that's where your moderator comes in. That's when whoever controls the day-to-day dialogue comes in and says, this is what we are about. I'll show you. Now you show me yourself. They can be anonymous forever if they choose to, because you're not speaking to the name, you're speaking to the soul, to the person who wants to communicate with you. That's how I think you can do it. Match your actions and words.
It's so important that you're highlighting this, because we're seeing a lot of lip service these days. After something hits the headline, we have these organizations or corporations, writing down their promise to review their policy or, update their manifesto, their values, blah, blah, blah. But then you don't really see the real change happening internally. So this next question hits on that a little bit. Do you have any tips for internal communications for these safe spaces? I want to make sure I'm being mindful and respectful of everyone's experiences. You spoke about the moderator, and actually, because I have to moderate, I do see the importance of, if you are a little shaky or if you're not completely focused on making sure that people feel safe to be transparent, to be vulnerable. And then the minute someone, is not respecting this digital space, everyone's time, I have to kick them out. And I'm not afraid to do that. I'll have to reach out to them and make sure they know the guidelines and the housekeeping rules, let's say. So you did speak about, the importance of the moderator. Any other internal communication, tips and tricks so that people can make sure they're fostering safe spaces?
Yeah, for us, one of the things we made sure, and okay, now the moderators speak directly with the audience, but of course we had an entire web page where you could go for more information. So we had NGOs and healthcare agencies that we partnered with that we could always refer people to. So it was always and it all came down to what the moderator sees and hears, and then as a team, we're a very small team. So what the team sees and everyone watches the moderator as the moderator watches everybody else, right? So we were at that time we were a team of about 7 or 8, max 6 or 7, and then of course we had the bigger power working with us from the Netherlands, RNW Media, to support everything we did. So everyone sort of checked and held everyone to make sure that we kept on focus. But here's a tip I have. Never let a message or a question go unanswered for too long. For us, it was within 48 hours, but I made sure it was within 24 or less. So if I go to bed with your question, you wake up to an answer, right? So it's, even if I'm not always there, I just make sure that your clock revolves around that conversation and my clock revolves around yours. So if I send you a message at night, I know when I wake up in the morning, you probably would send me something by morning or afternoon, and then by afternoon or evening, I respond to it. So you don't feel neglected, because it's digital space. You don't speak to people within a window, they feel abandoned. Now, another thing I did was I had what seemed like default answers, but they were actually responses that I had gathered over time. Now, I would write a reply to an answer, to a question. And if it looked good, I'll save that reply. Not too long from that day, someone is going to ask me something like that. And when I read it, I'll modify the reply and send it. Then this led to a culture of saving up these default replies by Love Matters Nigeria. So even if you send us a hello, you get a message that tells you, hi, how are you doing? And tell you who we are, why we're here, and why we're here for you, and ask you if you'd like to talk, or how's the day going? Or sometimes it's in Pidgin English, Pidgin English is a language of camaraderie in Nigeria, right? So it's not stiff like proper English, and it's not regional like our local dialects, which we have many of. You should Google Nigeria, there's so many of it. So Pidgin English breaks down the formality of English and gives you the warmth and camaraderie of your own local languages. So sometimes we answer in Pidgin English and say, oh, how far, how you day? We'll write that, which means how goes it? How are you doing? And when you see that, you go, oh, okay, these are the people I can talk to. So you're not worried if you can speak English or not. You just, you communicate. And so when I read your message, I always had it. When you go, I have a problem, then silence, because sometimes they're hesitant. So a person might say hello and nothing else for hours. Your reply tells them whether to say more or not. You might get, I have a problem, and silence. So you give the answers that allow for more dialogue. So if you are ever going to think about doing this, don't throw your answers away. The questions are different and sometimes similar. Always think of these answers not as computers do or automated answers do. They're answers you chose to use for people for reasons, and let that show through. And I think it helps you to meet up to the demand and still keep people engaged at the same time. So those are two things that work for me.
Beautifully said. And then I'm sure over time you can see, okay, a lot of people are asking this kind of question because we've sent this, tailored template response back to them. So then you can, create more content or more resources based on, the overwhelming amount of like-minded questions that folks are asking. I love that strategy. And also saves you time,
and you need to try. Well. Yeah, it does. But you also need to try to make sure that those tailored answers aren't too tailored. It sounds personal because you've read their messages, you've read their question, sometimes, because we had default ones that just go, hi, this is Love Matters Niger, we'll get back to you soon. But I never let those ones stay for hours. I'm back with mine, because now you read the messages and then you can change up a few things. So when you know this person is asking the same thing, but their tone is more hesitant or brash or warm, okay, maybe I might just have to change my hello to how far, or or change my this to what's up, so you know exactly what to change to. And if someone is formal, okay, I'll say hello, how are you? It's the same message, I just change it, for the audience. It helps, it saves time, but it keeps you connected.
And I love that, just, the camaraderie to let them know, just, off the jump, based on the language I'm using, you are welcome. And so I love that
Yes.
you're, it's hard to show that and express that online. So it seems like a great strategy in order for people to open up, which leads us to this next question here. How can we foster empathy in those around us who don't seem too keen on being open-minded?
Now I'll take you back to answer one, right? And I know there are questions about Nigeria as we go, so I'm going to try to keep my Nigerian references just a little bit limited, because the digital space is vast. But also, as vast as it is, it's quite local too for the people engaging in this space. And not everyone, you can't make everyone understand, and you can't teach empathy. You can only create environments that allow people to be empathetic, but you can't exactly teach them how to be. It will be fake and false. And when there's no one watching, they'll be the same, dangerous people that they can be. But we don't want that. We want people to be authentically them. If you have no empathy, let's see that you don't, and let's tell you this is not the space to be in. If you insist on staying, then observe. Maybe you learn something. So the goal was never really to teach people to have empathy or to make them empathetic. It was to have the conversation, right? And by being authentic ourselves, people who are hesitant tend to trust you. So can I get this person who's a bigot to trust me and the information that I bring? He or she may not like LGBTQ, plus people. He or she may not support safe abortion, which is another thing that's illegal in my country and was part of our work. Safe abortion is illegal. Everything practically these days is, so how do I get you to be present in that conversation? Because we're seeing that one of the things that break down societies everywhere in the world, despite the vast influence of digital spaces, is people aren't having conversations. They're either silencing people who choose not to have conversations that they want them to have, or they're just ending it, building blocks around themselves and walls, and speaking only in bubbles with people who agree with you. And that's not conversation. That's not how we know it to be. I mean, I live in Nigeria, so I still remember the days when you would have a conversation, right? So the important thing is not to teach you empathy, is to teach you the patience of the conversation. If you don't love me, that's fine. Or you can sit silently in a corner and hear me speak. If you want to engage me respectfully, I will. But if you want to bully me and knock me off and build a wall or silence me, now I'll tell you that I can't take that. That's not happening, not in this space that we have. So it's safe, and it should be safe for everyone, which means you want to be in this conversation, I'll let you. You want to silence the conversation, there's no one allowing you to do that. So I think concentrate in the communication, in trying to get everyone of every kind to have the conversation, but you can't make them. And you also can't teach people empathy. I don't believe that you can. Maybe someone here should raise your hand if you can, and let me learn something today, because that I haven't cracked as yet. So.
Well, I think what you're saying is spot on. To build your empathy, it comes from yourself. It comes from something inside of you. It cannot. I need to sit and contemplate that a little more, to see if we can innately be empathetic, or if we have to be taught, or if we just need that space. I agree with you 1,000% that when the space is given, there is a huge opportunity to be able to develop empathy, or say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going to go ahead and continue being a crazy person because it makes me
Somewhere
to,
else.
yeah, somewhere
Yeah.
else. Exactly. And I also love that your strategy is to challenge the bubbles that are percolating everywhere, right? I find it actually a little more dangerous. That,
Yes.
you know, people just want to build walls and put bubbles up and not invite the different perspective. We don't have debates, like you said. We used to have conversations. What about healthy debates? Why do we feel like we are, you know, my word is bond, and period. I don't want to hear anything that you have to say. Do you have, I mean, we're confronted with that, especially now, and especially during this, you know, this current pandemic that the globe is recognizing, because of course we have several pandemics happening, but this
Yeah.
particular pandemic with COVID-19 is forcing us to, you know, go transition and do things online more, which means how do we develop this space to be more empathetic? So this is it's a big question mark that I love that you're
It
putting on
is.
the table.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole conversation on its own. I mean, how can people be
Absolutely.
empathetic? You teach
Mm,
it? Do you let them
mhm,
sit there? Do you converse? What's the way?
mm.
But I'm going to tell you, Mariella, I don't think there's going to be one set way, one particular way to do it. I think you're going to modify it along the lines of nuance, intersectionality, the things that are unique to the space here might not be to the next, you know.
Mhm.
And now for the proper use of the word tolerance, you know, and you're just going to modify it as you go. I guess the real question is, are we ready to invest in modifying it? Do we have the time to do the work that it takes?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yes. Okay. So
Yeah.
actually, for those of for our live listeners, I would love to hear from you. So can you ask that question again, Nelly? And then please put your answer in the Q&A, and we can raise some of those and see where we are. Nelly, please go for it. The question again.
Yeah. So for empathy, do we have the time that it takes, to do the work, to have the conversation, for the nuance and the intersectionality that makes it unique to different places? Do we have the time? Are we willing to invest in making everyone empathetic if we can actually do that?
I love that. Okay, so if you're listening live, please drop your answer. There are no wrong answers. We want to hear from you.
No, there are no wrong answers.
There are no wrong answers. And actually, I have an anonymous question here that I'm going to flag as folks are writing questions here. So, how do we engage in those conversations without being constantly triggered and flying off the handle?
Ooh, I love that question. Because if I sat here and answered that question like I'm never triggered, then I betray my ancestors, the women in my family, the fact that I'm a Black Nigerian woman, and the fact that I use the digital space. Oh no, of course, there are moments you'll be triggered. And I have been triggered a lot. In fact, while doing that job, there were times when, to silence me, I'll get some really vivid, shocking images sent into the inbox, and I wouldn't know what I'm clicking. And when I just click it, I'm thrown for the day, and I'm just a mess. I'll go to bed with these weird images in my mind and in my head. It really, oh, there were days when I was ruined for the day. And then, of course, I'm a broadcaster, so I've experienced lots of triggering conversation on social, on the air. I work in talk radio, so they'll call you and it's happening live. So will you be triggered? Oh, absolutely. Now, how do you react to being triggered? Because pretending to be triggered, not to be triggered, is, I don't know, call someone that we can point out, and maybe that person can lead the way. So you will be triggered, but how do you react? But here's what I say. It's not about how you react, it's about how you own your reaction. Because you can never really plan your reaction in the moment. Sometimes you're triggered so much, you let it out. But how do you own it, and how do you walk around it, and how do you represent right after that? For me, what I developed was walking away completely from the space. And at that time, the space could be my phone or my laptop, wherever it was, or mostly the phone or the laptop. It either comes there or there to digital. And I
And
just shut
sometimes
it down
you want to throw it out the window at those
I
points,
just
right?
shut it down and I just walk away. And that's it. That's the end there, because you can't get the best of me and you can't get the worst of me. Because even when I explode on digital, it's never the same. Because if I really want to explode, I want you to see me do it so you can get some fear in you. But nah, I'm on digital, so it's just never the same, you know? So I learned to walk away. But when it happens live sometimes on Twitter, it comes at me and I'm like, no, you can't come at me because you don't know me. And if I choose to do that at that time, I stand by it. And thankfully, you type, in these things. So you can read what you've typed. I think the thing for me, and to answer that, and as you can see, I'm fishing because I'm trying to be as realistic and authentic as possible. But the thing is, I learned to step away first. I could react, but it's never at that moment. It could be a minute later, 50 seconds later, but never the moment I saw it and I'm going, what? No, 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 no. I learned to step back. And if I say, okay, I'm going to give this person a piece of my mind, I do it deliberately because I need to stand by my crazy, literally, And if I choose to silence you, I need to stand by it. I learned to just give it some time. I pause and then I know what to do. So you could try it, but will you be triggered? Absolutely, you will be triggered. Absolutely.
There is a power in the
reaction.
pause. Yes, I love
you.
I love this feedback. I love this feedback, Nelly, because I don't think that we practice observation, contemplation, a moment to just recalibrate. The one thing that's constant is change, right? So if we allow something to just like take us into a place where we didn't ask to go there anyway, someone else's insecurities and fears are coming into our space. And what do we do with that? Well, it's best to take a pause and get our minds together and right and practice mindfulness. I love that you are and also standing up by your crazy, standing next to your crazy. I love that, advocating for your crazy.
Exactly, because it will come, and if you're authentic, you know it will come. So hey, defend it, but you must know that at this moment I'm going to be crazy, and this is what I'm going to say, and this is what I'll defend. Let's not have, if there's any good thing about digital, is that it gives you a moment to pause. So use it. Use the pause.
Yeah, I don't know that enough people are practicing that. So hopefully a couple folks who are listening live will begin to implement that, just to protect yourself also, and to
don't give the person that much power. They're not there.
Exactly.
Then they ruin your entire life, and then they keep going to ruin someone else's.
Exactly. Okay, so we have one response from the question that you posed earlier regarding time and empathy. So this person writes, the time has not been designated yet. Definitely want to make the time to do the much needed work. Do you have any, what can someone start doing right now when this conversation ends? What can they start to do to be more mindful about, allocating time to practice empathy, or to creating the space to be more empathic at home or in the workplace, because it's hard. I love that you bring up time. Time is such a, what is time, and why is it so valuable, and especially in the workplace, which is
why do we have so little of it?
We have, and everything is about productivity, and you need to get, you need to be bringing in X amount by the end of the hour, by the end of the day. And so, and do I have time to practice empathy in that? I have to all these deliverables, so how can we have a mind shift there so that we know this is to everyone's benefit, to allocate some time to be more empathetic?
Well, Mariella, I try to be very careful about answering how to's, because then that says I've fixed it. I know it, so I know how to do it. So I'm passing it on. I don't. Anything I say right now, I just learned it now, saying it to you, or maybe something I've done, and I figured, oh, that could be a good lesson for me, and then I'm sharing it with you, right? So we never have time. I thought being locked in a pandemic and doing nothing meant I had time, but somehow I still didn't have it. And the older you get, the least time you've got to spend. So I think it's just to be conscious. There will be many moments that you fail, but then there'll be the one time where consciousness comes in and you can do that one good at that time. And then you live for the next time when you win again, I guess when we get conscious of them, consciousness helps us to create that time. Consciousness helps you know, okay, this is a time to pause. This person might be angry, but they look like if I give them 2 hours, I can say something to them. Then you try in 2 hours and you might be lucky, or you try in 2 hours and they might actually be worse and you walk away. But I think consciousness helps us. to create that time. But it's never there to take and use and fix. But it's just as you come across people, you know which battles to pick, and what to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Nelly. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, and I love
That's fine.
your reflection of, I don't have it right. Like, I'm not perfect. I don't think that any of us are experts. I think that we're all figuring it out in every moment. And these conversations
Yeah.
help us to remember that, to be mindful of that. And we're sharing, what has worked for us. And maybe tomorrow it's different. But I think that openness, that awareness, that consciousness that you're bringing up is key. We have another comment here regarding the pause that you spoke about earlier. Yes, learning to step back and take a pause. I tend to shut down, so I'm going to try that next time. Thank you. So good. So folks are listening to us. Thank you so much. I encourage everyone to take that
Thank
pause,
you.
as Nelly mentioned before. So we have a little over 10 minutes left. I told you that time would fly by.
Oh,
Let's
wow.
move on.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to highlight one or two more questions that folks have submitted offline, and then I'll give you a chance to just close us out with some food for thought. So what support is there for LGBTQ plus youth or others dealing with their sexual identities for the first time? What support or resources are needed the most?
All right, Mariela, is it okay if I just add that up to a question that I think came before that?
Yep,
All right.
totally.
Okay, now this was about challenges unique in Nigeria. And I wanted to point out, then I'll just link straight into that question, that the challenges are not exactly unique to Nigeria. The question was if it's indicative to other, challenges in Africa. They're not particularly unique to Nigeria. And as I said before, nuance and what's unique to different places. Love Matters had an office or still has an office in Kenya and the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Homosexuality is criminalized in Nigeria and Kenya through and through. In the DRC, it's illegal to be married. You're not recognized or protected by the country or by the state, nothing. So basically, all three countries, you could say it's similar. But you come to Nigeria, you would wonder how many people have criminalized their LGBTQ neighbor. Maybe very few people have, but police have criminalized young men that they thought were gay. So these things vary. So the nuance is what makes the question I'm about to answer, the one you just asked me, quite unique in essence, that help and openness for LGBTQ plus people in Nigeria have for now been championed by NGOs, non-governmental organizations in the country. Create these spaces that say, we can give you healthcare. We know doctors and nurses that are sympathetic to your issue. There was a question on healthcare too, so let me just do all of them together, Yeah, so we know doctors who are sympathetic to your issue, so who can come secretly to help you, because doctors and nurses will get penalized. Healthcare providers will penalize anyway. Now, healthcare is poor throughout Nigeria. Terrible. No one trusts their doctors. Now, imagine what it looks like for someone who's already been criminalized, especially by the country, right? So it's NGOs do that. And what NGOs need more than anything else is international collaboration, media collaboration, more voices in the UN and international spaces where they can say, remember that country, it's still illegal to be free there. And freedoms, when taken away from a section of people, just continues. Today, we're having Twitter ban in Nigeria. They're trying to take away our chances and our choices to speak, to be free, to challenge government, to express displeasure. It all starts by a country keeping silence when they said LGBTQ people couldn't be free, women couldn't have safe abortions, women couldn't do this person can't do that. And you support it and say, my morals say it's wrong. And when Africans say that, in the course of your meeting Africans, when you hear Africans say it's against our culture, they mean their religious culture, because culturally, as traditional people, we don't have that. But Islam and Christianity are the most dominant religion in Africa. So when you hear culture, they mean their religious culture, not supporting a thing. And silence in one end is silence for everyone. We're paying the price of being silent when years ago someone said LGBTQ people were not allowed to be free. We're paying for it today, whether women or men or anyone now who uses the digital space. We're paying for it. These things pay forward, unfortunately they do. And so that's it. So healthcare and freedom to express and places to be themselves For now, it's being championed by NGOs, and there's a long list. I had a list to mention for you. I probably will do that towards the end, so that you can find them on Twitter and follow them and see the work they do, and then know how to engage them. They help people find a safe space. But I'll preempt the next question. What if they're not on digital? What if you can't find them on digital? These NGOs do the boot work. They are on ground. They go down to the ground. They find, during the pandemic, during lockdown, many LGBTQ youths were homeless. There are very few and far between shelters for them. NGOs found a way to get their drugs to them, found a way to keep some of them safe. And one gay person will tell you who the next gay person is. And it's done quietly and bravely too. So these spaces are there. It's not enough. We wish it was, but there are people who are doing this work, brave people who are doing it, but they need collaboration from local and international media and from international NGOs and voices in international spaces and organizations that say, let's keep at this country until they can.
Can you take a moment to list those organizations that you said you would later? I just want to respect that now. Take your time, list them. And then also for folks who signed up for this, you will be getting a rewatch email with the links to the resources that Nelly is explaining here. But just in case those are listening or rewatching and they don't get the email, I want Nelly to be able to vocalize these organizations so you have access to them.
All right. The first thing we did on Love Matters Niger was we introduced people to Marie Stopes International. Marie Stopes they're very popular, MARIESTOPES, and they would listen and they'll provide care. You call them up and they'll listen to you. Paul's question just popped up. I'll answer that question too. But so they are a healthcare place. We have new media like Zikoko Magazine, No Strings NG, Rustin Times. These are media, new media, digital media that talk and share the stories of gay people, their love for one another, how they discovered their sexuality, how free they are, their challenges. They humanize them. And I know this is a wrong term to use, but if you live in a country like Nigeria, it's a proper term. They humanize them. They say they love as we love. They live as we live. They're like you and me. They have butterflies in their stomach. It's crazy I'm saying this, but you need to in a place like Nigeria, right? But for the NGOs, we've got tiers. This is what I'm going to do. You will just find them as I spell them by their acronyms, but you know it's them. Tiers, TIERS. Just do that on Twitter, @TIERS. It's an initiative for equal rights. Just find them. There is Love Matters Niger. You have Steer. I could actually even email you these links and then you these handles. We've got Steer, which is Stand to End Rape, STER. We've got EVA Nigeria, Mirabel Center, INCRES. We've got BC Alimi Foundation. Now this one is actually international, but he supports it here because he's Nigerian who suffered the wrong end of the stick. We've got Where Initiative and Equality Hub Nigeria and One Action Foundation. These are strictly for LGBTQ, and some of them are just for SR, HR, and LGBTQ. Because why the window is that wide is because, and let me quickly wrap this up, is because when you are gay and hiding from the world, you're also hiding from medical care and sexual health and reproductive health information. So sometimes many NGOs just have them together. And these NGOs help them to secure financial aid, legal aid, access to medical care, and they just need more help.
So Nelly, I know you've got more that you want to share, and I've just got a message here from Paloma. We are going to add all of these awesome resources that Nelly is highlighting and flagging now to the chat description. So we'll add it to YouTube. We'll also add it to Power to Fly so that folks can easily access them. We have a great question here from Paul. Why don't we organize a big protest and bring gays from all over the world to Nigeria?
Did you hear a few months back about the End SARS protest in Nigeria, where there was technically a massacre at the toll gate, where young Nigerians were protesting police brutality, and the solution to that was send soldiers to release gunfire and shoot down as many people as possible. My country is a country that for many years has been led by soldiers, but from one military coup to another. We are just a young democracy since 1999. That was when we first have this experiment of democracy. And in a democratic government right now, they're trying to take away our freedoms. If you bring people to protest the streets of Nigeria, I can't promise you they'll be safe. It's the most risky thing to do. So, Paul, why I wanted to answer your question is because it takes me back to what I said earlier about knowing the society and the language there, understanding what's unique to these people. It's not a lack of bravery. It is not timidity. It's understanding that the protest you recognize on the streets doesn't work in Nigeria. We are constantly trying to find a way to keep people alive and free at the same time. We're also a country. What if the world turns a blind eye and just says lip service and just sanctions a few rich people? People are still dead and more will die. So bombarding the country, which I don't think you're really allowed to do, really. I don't think you can walk into a sovereign state and just protest. But that's not going to work. But we love the passion, and please do this online as much as you can. Find our lawmakers and bombard them with whatever digital torture you want to give them. But what we know for sure is, please don't step on the streets of Nigeria without permits to protest. It's not going to work.
And that's the duality of the digital space and the physical space is real. It's becoming more and more, real, how the dichotomy of it, right? So I know that Twitter is banned right now. What can we do to try to, support that, that it does not censor Nigerian folk? What can we do, the folks of us who are not in Nigeria?
Join the noise. Many of us are on VPN right now, and that's the only way I can tweet. That's the only way I promoted this. I've been banned. I did it with VPN. So every time you guys retweeted me, I want you to know that I did that illegally. So but join the noise. We have a hashtag, keep it on, and we want the world to know. Jack knows, and he's doing the best that he can, right? And you just have to join the noise. Every space where you're speaking, speak about people who don't have the freedom to speak as you do. Learn about their lives, learn about their challenges. And when you want to speak about them, be informed about what they're going through, be informed about the uniqueness of their challenges. Go on Twitter, look for hashtag keep it on. It's definitely from Nigeria, and join the noise. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Nelly. You've dropped so much knowledge. I know that we didn't get to some of the questions, so hopefully we can have you back. I'm definitely going to be supporting your work online. Thank you so much for all the great work that you're doing. And I look forward to staying connected. Anything else that you want to take us out with? Any food for thought? Let us know. I want you to have the last words.
Yes. Here's my food for thought. Try to understand communities that are outside of yours. We spend, and I know this is an international space, it's not just for Americans, but I just want to say this for every country in the global south, in the global north, countries in the global south know about you. We read about you, we read your books, we watch your movies, we tell your stories. But if you want to be an ally, whether it's for the LGBTQ community here or just in general for countries of the global south, read about us. We have books. Endure our movies, watch them, understand them, know who we are, so that when you want to communicate with us, you're careful not to patronize or condescend. And maybe we can start talking again. And who knows, empathy.
Yes, mic drop. Great way to end this conversation. And so hopefully our live callers and those who are rewatching this video really start to practice what Nelly has been preaching this past hour. Let's, reflect on how can we be more empathic? How can we, reshape the way that we're forming community in the digital space and the physical space? How can we advocate for each other and just respect each other's presence and being in this world, right? We are beautiful creatures. Everyone is different. No one has the right to say that anyone does not deserve to be here taking up space. So let's keep that in mind. Thank you, Nelly, so much. I know that you're a busy woman. Yes. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and we'll see everyone on the next Chat and Learn.